Well, good afternoon. I'm Reverend David. Thank you for joining me today for Disciple Time as we continue on in our journey to Jerusalem. Today, we are looking at the Sunday Dinner Challenge. Well, what is that? I'm going to get to that. But before we do, I just want to share with you what a blessing it was to share a meal with you outside at the Ponderosa Park this week for our church picnic. And there you see, I have on our map the road to Jerusalem. Bishop Jim preparing the Lord's Supper for us. And what a beautiful meal that was to share the Lord's Supper and then go into that time of dinner and fellowship together. And it kind of made me think of that place in Acts where they're talking about how God uses this type of fellowship and this type of gathering to really increase the church. Look what it says in verses 46 through 47. Every day, they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And I just want to share with you a couple awesome pictures that I got from this weekend. One here is at the church picnic, and just look at how much fun everybody's having gathered around that table there. And then also the day before when we had our river float down the Deschutes River with the young families, again, it was coming to the table and that beautiful meal that Doug and Victoria had prepared for us that really just brought us all together in fellowship. Now, we had a lot of good times of fellowship as we went down the river, kind of one-on-one here and there. But when we got to the end and we got to those cupcakes that Karen brought and all that stuff, it really pulled the whole thing together. And really, that's a miraculous time. And if you think about it, this weekend we were looking and contrasting the idea of the dinner table and what the world uses the dinner table for versus what God had called Israel to use the dinner table for. And we know that Jesus was calling us to use that dinner time as an opportunity to manifest the kingdom in the world rather than to feed our egos and just to keep ourselves kind of in the social limelight, so to speak, right? And so what I thought we would do today is just look at some of the ways the table is different when Jesus is at the dinner. Some of the things that happen. How do we manifest, the kingdom at the table? Well, first off, when Jesus is at the dinner, we have miraculous fellowship. That's the kind of thing we want to manifest at our meals. In John 2, verses 1 through 10, we have the account of Jesus turning water into wine. And it was that turning of water into wine that really made that banquet something special. It was Jesus' first miracle. So yes, miracles can happen as we gather in fellowship with our focus on Christ. So first off, when Jesus is at the dinner, miraculous fellowship. But what's the second thing? Outcasts are accepted. Right. Think about Matthew 9 through 17. This is where Jesus is dining with Matthew, one of his disciples. Well, Matthew was a tax collector. And at this dinner, Matthew had invited all his friends. And this was a socially unaccepted thing because everybody frowned upon those who engaged in the vocation of collecting taxes. You were like an outcast automatically. Well, when Jesus is at the dinner, the outcasts are accepted. So as we manifest Jesus at our dinners, let's receive those who might be socially unacceptable, and let's treat them as people that are loved by God, right? What about number 3? When Jesus is at the dinner, past offenses are laid to rest. And I love the story in Luke 7, chapter 36 through 50, where Jesus forgives the sins, not the sons. That's a typo right there. I'll have to fix that. Jesus forgives the sins of the woman who anoints his feet with the oil. And man, she got all kinds of flack for that, and everybody was upset, and they called her a sinner. But no, you know what? Jesus laid those past offenses to rest. So that's something we want to manifest at our dinner tables. If we're going to manifest the kingdom, don't use the dinner table as an opportunity to bring up everybody's bad stuff, right? It's a positive place. We got to build each other up. How about the fourth thing? When Jesus is at the dinner, all people are nourished in unity. right? How about the story of John 6, 1 through 14, where Jesus feeds the 5,000 in the deserted wilderness? He doesn't say, okay, only the people that I like I'm going to feed, or only the Jews I'm going to feed. No, everybody that showed up to the table got fed in unity, in equality, together. What a manifestation of the kingdom. How about number 5? When Jesus is at the dinner, Christian priorities are emphasized. We can focus on a lot of things at the dinner table, but let's remember to keep our priorities right. And here we're talking about Luke 10, verses 38 through 42, where Jesus is eating with Martha and Mary. And you know the story. One of them's a busybody, and one of them is really spending that time enjoying the presence of Christ. And so there is kind of a reprioritization of what we're focusing on. And so at our tables, let's be sure that we're focusing on Christ throughout the meal. At some point, you can do that with grace. You can do that by sharing things you're thankful for. There's lots of different ways to bring that emphasis in. How about number 6? Well, when Jesus is at the dinner, healing words are spoken. In Luke 14, 1 through 24, Jesus dines with one of the chief Pharisees. And what happens? He heals the man with dropsy. And you know, the Pharisees were looking for ways to really put Jesus down, especially when he did these healings on the Sabbath. But what we see as we manifest the kingdom at our dinner tables, if we're going to model Christ, then let's speak healing words at our dinners. Let's be encouraging. Let's be uplifting. Let's help our brothers and sisters in Christ feel the comfort of the Holy Spirit and God's grace. How about number 7? When Jesus is at the dinner, thanks is given to God for all God has done. Now, this is a very important dinner. That we see in Mark 14, verses 17 through 27, where Jesus offers his body and blood and institutes that as the Holy Eucharist. And of course, this is all about the new covenant and how we're nourished by God. But let's kind of boil it down for our purposes and manifesting Jesus at our dinners with the idea of giving thanks for all God has done. How about number 8, when Jesus is at the dinner? Hope is given to us for all that God will do. Now, I love this one because this is where in Luke 24, verses 28 through 32, Jesus shares a meal with the 2 men who were traveling on the road to Emmaus. And this is after Jesus' resurrection. You'd think after Jesus died, well, we know that people were kind of depressed. They're like, oh man, you know, he died, but Jesus was also resurrected. And so having this meal after Jesus rose from the dead, it kind of helps focus and give us focus on the hope that we have, not in what Christ has done. Of course, we have hope in that, but also what Christ is doing in heaven right now and what he will do for us as his children. Let's not lose hope of that. And how about number 9, when Jesus is at the dinner? God's love is exhibited unconditionally. And I love this one too, because here in John 21, verses 1 through 23, we have this story where Jesus visits the disciples. Again, this is after his resurrection, and they had been fishing all night. He says, no, go out, drop your nets. They catch a huge fish, a huge thing of fish. They get back to shore. They have a meal with Jesus. And during that meal, Jesus has this talk with Peter. And if you remember, Peter was the disciple that rejected Christ and refused to admit he was a follower of Christ until the cock crowed, right? And I'm sure Peter was feeling down on himself for this personal failure that he had. And then Jesus lovingly kind of restores him and loves him unconditionally in spite of his humanity, in spite of his weaknesses. So at our tables, when we're trying to manifest the kingdom, we don't focus on people's shortcomings, their weaknesses, and their failures. No, we focus on restoration, we focus on love, and we focus on the grace of God that surpasses all things. So that brings us to our Sunday dinner challenge. And I'm saying let's try to do this on September 17th, okay? Now, what is the Sunday dinner challenge? This is what I'd like you to do. Pick a family in the church you don't regularly eat with, somebody you don't know very well, and plan to have a Sunday dinner with them on September 17th. It can be at your house, it can be at their house, it can be at a mutual place at a restaurant, but let's mix it up a little bit. Look across to the other side of the church, to the people you never sit with, and invite them to a meal. This is a powerful manifestation of the kingdom. How do I know this? Because that's what people have been doing with me since I got here. They called it dining with Dave, right? Dining with David. And I've loved that because I've got an opportunity to meet and interact with people on a much closer one-on-one basis. So I want you to get that opportunity. Maybe there's somebody in the church you don't know very well. Use this opportunity to get to know them. September 17th. I want to see y'all out there over the next couple weeks planning this dinner with those people that you don't know very well, right? And anyway, thank you for joining me today. The application for the journey is this. Try to let every meal reflect Christ's love and God's kingdom. And let's go back to Acts 2:46 through 47. This is kind of the overarching verses that gave me this idea. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm Reverend David, and I hope to see you next week for Disciple Time. Christ.